I had never been to Mathare. I had never seen people in such vulnerable states, And of course, it was very shocking. It really humbles you. It made me realize how life is so fragile, how you need people who love you and who care about you. And I learned to appreciate how someone having relationship issues can lead all the way to an extreme experience of them getting into substance abuse, alcohol, drinking, and eventually them becoming psychotic. From an issue such as forgiveness, someone did something to you, your parents neglected you, to you forgiving them and avoiding the path of developing anxiety and depression and extreme mental health issues. There's a joke in the mental health space that it's an open members club.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Anyone can join at any time. You don't know what you will go through that will take you to the extreme end, So
welcome to the Shujaa Fitcast. Once again, we are here to have more conversations enlightening us about our fitness, our health, our well-being. And the idea is to highlight the fact that there's a lot more to our physical health than just training and nutrition. I find that physical health and your mental health go hand in hand, and which is why I thought it's important for us to address mental health as a subject and go a bit deeper into some of the topics that are pertinent to what it means to be healthy mentally, how this affects our overall life. It's a journey that I took on actively ever since 2017, more of like a self-reflective kind of thing. Went for my first therapy sessions in 2017. Interesting experience. It was prompted by current events at that time that were kind of shaking my world, and I felt like I needed some kind of grounding, someone to talk to about some of the things I was going through. So with that, it kind of led me down a wormhole of self-reflection, trying to consider my past, my present, my future, how those things interact with one another. And so today we're very fortunate to have an expert in that field with us. I can't tackle such a topic on my own. I'm really honored that we have a guest with us today who is in the mental health space. She's a psychologist, to be exact. Welcome, Brenda Onyango,
Thank you
to the podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your day to do this. I think we're very fortunate that we have people like you out there who can give us context about this mental health story. But before we get into all that, actually, I should probably introduce the topic that we plan to cover today, which is emotional injury / trauma. The reason I thought this particular topic is important is because when it comes to physical health, injuries are very crucial to understand and to know how they affect how you'll move forward. And I think in the same way, I think of mental or emotional injury in the same way. It affects so much about how we'll end up living life. You can give us more context about the specifics, but that's the topic we hope to cover today. But before all that, I would like you to introduce us to yourself, the work you do, what got you into this mental health space or psychology as a whole. Introduce us to the work you do, all that good stuff.
Okay, like you said, my name is Brenda Onyango. I am a counseling psychologist. I've studied psychology to a master's level at USIU. And how I got into this field? Well, there are several parts. First of all, I've always been that person who's easy to talk to. Yeah. So I figured, why don't I add a skill to that? That's why I decided to do psychology. Another thing is that when I was doing my undergraduate, my major was international relations, and I did a minor in psychology. So when I was doing psychology, I was so fascinated by everything about it. You mean there's a way people think? You mean there's a way someone can say something and they don't mean it, and you'd be able to know that they don't mean it? So I was so intrigued by that. So after finishing my undergraduate, I registered for the master's to do a master's in counseling psychology. So that was one path that I also took that got me into the field. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. Psychology is a very interesting field. You learn so much about people, and most importantly, you learn about yourself. And this is a career that I've stuck to because it's very rewarding. You help someone, you see their progress, you see where they're stuck, and you help them fix it, and they're able to move on, and you give them tools to deal with future problems. So it's a very, very rewarding field, and that is what keeps me going in the field.
When you were younger, when you say you were easy to talk to, were you conscious about being... No, I wasn't. It's now that I've studied psychology and I've realized that as a therapist, you need to be approachable. You need to be someone who people would feel free to talk to you. People from all walks of life at different stages of their life. So I wasn't conscious of it. I only became conscious of it when I was doing my undergraduate and being in class and being taught about Freud and the different psychologists. That's when I realized. But before, no, I knew nothing about it. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Nice. So as far as you've given us a bit of your background in terms of what you studied. So in terms of this psychology field, what has been your overall journey been like, moving from studying it and now applying it in the real world, let's say?
Yeah.
What's that experience been like, navigating it as a career, meeting with people who have real problems, etc.?
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting journey. I've learned a lot. I've even changed as a human being. Yeah, I've become more accommodating and more understanding. I used to be this very black and white person, but now I've learned to appreciate the gray areas. I've learned to accept that gray areas exist. Yeah. So my initial experience was, of course, doing we call it practicum, you can call it internship. At my first place was Mathare.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had never been to Mathare. I had never seen people in such vulnerable states, And of course, it was very shocking. It really humbles you. It made me realize how life is so fragile, how you need people who love you and who care about you. Because I would see families come, bring their siblings, bring their parents, bring their grandparents, and it just made me realize you need good people in your life. Because once you have mental health challenges, your ability to take care of yourself is really compromised. Yeah. So you need people, you need your loved ones, you need your family. And that just made me want to create a better relationship with my immediate circle. Because I know should things not work out, they're the people I'll rely on to go on with life. So that was very eye-opening for me. And it just made me realize how much when you're put in a state where you have so much responsibility to take care of people who are vulnerable, you really need to be very careful with the way you operate. You need to care. You need to have a lot of patience. Yeah. So Mathare was a wonderful experience for me. Then I went on to work at a counseling center, the USIU Counseling Center, dealing with students. And that was such a huge shift. From seeing extreme cases of mental health to the other spectrum where you have people dealing with issues such as self-awareness, people dealing with issues such as relationship issues, and they were equally distressing, you know. And I learned to appreciate how someone having relationship issues can lead all the way to an extreme experience of them getting into substance abuse, alcohol, drinking, and eventually them becoming psychotic. From an issue such as forgiveness, you know, someone did something to you, your parents neglected you, to you forgiving them and avoiding the path of developing anxiety and depression and extreme mental health conditions. Yeah, so that was my journey. Then after doing all that, of course, I had to take a back seat because that was heavy.
A lot, yeah. What was the time span?
It was about a year.
Okay, of both those.
Yeah,
Wow.
about I think it was semester 1, then a break, then semester 2 for the next one. So that was heavy for me. I had to take a back seat and ask myself, do I really want to do this stuff?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because also when you say you went to Madare, you know, speaking about the whole mental health thing in general, when you're a kid, okay, let me not even say that. In our society,
Today,
when we talk about mental health issues or when we joke about it, it's always like Madare,
You know.
Madare. So for me growing up, it's always been this mythical place that I know nothing about, that sorry to say, but you just know crazy people go there.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
for you to have actually been there and working with those people, and then, like you're saying, moving on to now the students, and you being able to draw a parallel, for me, I think is so powerful, because it's the reason I think our conversation here is very important, because one, it's a spectrum. Our mental health is a spectrum, and then you in USIU as a cool kid, you're not any better than someone who is checked into an actual mental health facility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, there's a joke in the mental health space that it's an open members club.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Anyone
Yeah,
can join at
yeah.
any time. You don't know what you will go through that will take you to the extreme
Yes,
end,
yeah.
you know? So anyone can end up there, yeah? It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is, you know? Things happen, and we'll go into it about trauma, and you'll see how anyone can find themselves in that situation, you know? Which makes the whole stigma and discrimination, like, it doesn't make sense, because this is open to everyone. Yeah.
Open members club. That's good. I'll use that another time. Yeah, that's really helpful. That's a journey and a half. So currently, how do you help people get healthier? How have you? What is your current? How do you
Practice.
Yeah, what's your practice like today?
Yeah, so after taking a backseat from my internship experience, what came out of it is that the rest of the population doesn't know much about mental health. I would see patients being brought in and them coming back because of things that happened to them when they were outside the hospital. It's a family member who did something unknowingly. Some with very good intentions, you know, did something that triggered that person and brought them back. So I realized there's a gap. The people in the society don't know much about mental health, and they need to be educated. The same way I was educated. They need to have this information so that when they have a family member who's experiencing mental health challenges, they can be the best support, you know? So I did awareness campaigns where we did a documentary, had the screening event, then that took a backseat for some time because of just challenges of life. Then now in 2020, I started doing videos again of educating people about mental health issues. Then after 2020, I realized I am ready to go back to practice as a therapist. I'm ready to now see clients. And so that's how I got into it, seeing what individual clients. And then now I have a job as a counselor in a university where I deal with students. And I do that. That's my job that pays my bill, because we need to pay bills. And I also do the awareness campaigns through my Mental is Human Too initiative. On social media, I create content and share with people. And yeah, that's what I'm up to at the moment.
You seem to have do you think it's the USIU experience that gave you a special like place to deal with students? But I mean, I think it's noble, because I remember what life was like on campus, in campus, just studying. That season is very weird. I think for a lot of people, there's just so much. I think it's a very volatile stage in every stage is volatile, to be honest. Like you said, it's an open members club, but I find that it's more intense because of the pressure to perform. You believe that after this you have to have figured out your life, all that stuff, you know. Yeah. So was it your experience? I mean, do you have a special place in your heart for students, or that's just how your career has worked out?
That's how my career has worked out. But as I do it, I realize I'm really enjoying working with young people, because young people listen and they are quick to make the changes. If they come to therapy and you talk about it and you realize here's the problem, they can easily change. Yeah, they can drop a friend, drop a habit, take action to make a lifestyle change. Young people can do that. So it's very rewarding. For older people, because I still have a few clients who are not students, who do like one-on-one with me. For older people, it's harder for them to make the changes. I don't know, it's the whole concept of you can't bend a whole tree, or is it because in an adult's life there are many consequences
to changes,
you know, like if someone is in a dysfunctional marriage, you know, it's hard for them to quit that marriage if they have to. It's hard for them to sit down, lower their ego, admit they're wrong, sit down with their spouse and square the issues. For older people, it's a challenge to make changes. It's kind of set in stone. It's quite a challenge for them.
That's really interesting. Really glad you shared with us your journey. Now to the main discussion. I thought it would be helpful to define terms by working with someone who is very educated here. So I did some research myself just to kick off the discussion. I quickly just researched what the definition of emotional trauma. This is from the JED or the JED Foundation. It says that emotional trauma is the end result of events or experiences that leave us feeling deeply unsafe and often helpless. It can result from a single event or be part of an ongoing experience, such as chronic abuse, bullying, discrimination, or humiliation. I think that's helpful to know what we're referring to as we go on. But why should we care about emotional injury, trauma, all these different type of things?
We need to care about emotional trauma. Okay, they're saying emotional trauma, but I'll say psychological trauma, because psychological is comprehensive, you know. Psychological here meaning how the events will affect how you feel, your emotions, how you think, your thoughts, and how you behave, your actions. So when we experience the things that have been said there in the definition, when you experience something that is so overwhelming, like a car accident or being humiliated in front of people, it is shocking to your brain in such a way your brain is having trouble to deal with it. So you're stuck in this loop of this bad experience that you had. And so in that loop, it's like it's not been closed. You've not registered that this event has finished. So you keep reliving it. You keep being hypervigilant about, I was in a car accident, I need to be careful on the road. Or I'm in a car, I need to be extra careful. If there's a loud bang, you're like, maybe it's about to happen again, you know? So experiencing those things overwhelm your normal way of coping. You get stuck in that unfinished loop of this bad experience that you had. And it's important for us to be aware of that, because it affects our whole experience. You see, if you experience trauma and you're stuck in that state of being hypervigilant, of being startled, or having flashbacks, you have moments where you think it's about to happen, or it's happening to you again. Or when you sleep at night, you have nightmares of the thing happening again to you. So it's important that we are aware, because it affects how you see the world. You go around being hypervigilant, even in situations where you don't need to. And so you become an anxious person. So it's ruining your human experiencing. Instead of sitting in a place and enjoying the peace and the fun that people are having, you can't. You are anxious. You're on the edge, you know. So it will affect how you interact with the world, because it has given you this lens by which you see the world. Yeah. So it affects everything we do, you know, every space we go into, that is with us. Everything we do, every decision we make, you know, it can be a stumbling block. Instead of taking a step to even maybe the car example, maybe you should drive and take somebody somewhere. You can't, because you're scared you might be in another accident, you know. Or if it is being, maybe one day in class you stood up to say something and everyone laughed at you, you know, such a person will not want to stand up again in any social setting, in any place where people are gathering, because they're just thinking they might laugh at me again. I might experience that humiliation again. So can you imagine going on in life with a stumbling block? Every time you're trying to move, there's something standing in your way. So you fail to experience life as you should. So we really need to be keen on that.
That's, I mean, just as you are talking, when you're using the car example, I was thinking about it in the sense of a child, because in reading a bit more about this and just living life, you know this about children and how vulnerable children are, which is why they're a protected group. We all know this. Even intuitively, we know that children are a vulnerable group. It's clear to see why when you have those like negative experiences as a child, why the later part of your life, even if things are different, you can end up being stuck in different ways. Because even if you're not, let's say as a kid, you are laughed at or you are abused or bullied, later on in life, maybe there's no one bullying you, but somehow you're living life like that bully still exists, or people are still going to laugh at you and whatnot. And it stops you, just like you said, from living life, period. So in your view, does everyone experience emotional injury or trauma?
Yeah, we all do to varied degrees, you know, because we are on this earth and things happen. The example we're saying about bullying, people have experienced bullying in different forms, some mild, some extreme. So there's that. As long as you're interacting with other human beings, you can experience some level of trauma. In Kenya, let's go local. We live in a society where so many things happen, you know. We are dealing with poverty. Poverty makes you vulnerable to experiencing trauma, you know. Kenya, we've experienced post-election violence, you know. That is something that was traumatizing, and some people are still living with experiences. Those who are still in IDP camps and all that. We have post-election violence. We also have some social norms that can be traumatizing, you know, about it's okay to beat a child, you know. A child, some of them put children in a very vulnerable situation. Like a child is not supposed to question an adult. So if an adult comes and abuses a child in all spectrums, beats them or even sexually abuses them, the child will keep quiet. They'll be like, I'm not supposed to question what an adult does, you know? So we have a society that anyone, like I was saying, the open members club, anyone can experience these traumas. Yes, the degrees are varied. There's the extreme ones where we say your life was threatened. There's also where you're experiencing repeated trauma. If you grew up like in an abusive home, where you are being abused as a child or you're neglected and you're just in a negative experience, that is the extreme end of it. There are also the extreme conflict, political conflict and all that. Those are the extreme. Then there are those incidences where you're like in a toxic work environment, that can also be very traumatizing. It can make you get stuck in you've heard of these people who say I'll never go back to corporate Kenya. What happened to them, you
even see those conversations on Twitter every day.
Exactly. I'll never go back to corporate Kenya because my boss used to do this, my colleagues used to do this. There's that also. Or people who are like, I'm never doing relationships, because I just want to be alone, because they had those bad experiences in relationships. So we all experience trauma in different states and capacities. Exactly.
The relationship thing is obviously a very common one. Who hurt you? That question.
People ask, who hurt you? Oh, you're bitter. But it's a valid experience.
True. I think you've already shared some examples of emotional injury, so we won't go through that again. But so how are some ways that emotional injury usually manifests? And how does this come up emotionally, physically, maybe even spiritually in your experience?
So when you've experienced these kinds of injuries or trauma, you will have some behavioral tendencies about yourself, you will be that person who's always scanning the environment. Like I said, you're hypervigilant. You'll see yourself always scanning your environment, even in situations that you don't need to. You'll be hypervigilant. There are things you will avoid, like we are saying. You'll really try to not be in situations that can cause anything related to what you experienced. You will be, maybe if you find some people are irritable also, some people are very defensive, to unnecessary levels. Some people have extreme trust issues, In a relationship, they are paranoid about their partner cheating, being unfaithful. They're extremely paranoid because it happened to them. Or they just generally have a sense of not being able to trust because maybe as a child, a trusted family member or a trusted caregiver broke that trust. So they carry it. It's so sad. So because your mom said they're going to come back and they didn't come back, you come into a relationship and now you can't trust your romantic partner. It's
funny, my wife and I were watching Suits yesterday, and there's this season where the main character, Harvey Specter, the lawyer, is going for therapy, and the therapist uncovers that his womanizing issues come from his issues with his mother. So when he was a child, he caught his mother cheating on that father. So he walked into the house. He was sent home early from school because of being sick. So he walks into the parents' bedroom, finds another man with the mother. Of course, as a kid, they show how he didn't really understand what was going on. The mother tried to manage the situation. But as an adult lawyer now, the therapist is like, we need to talk about your mother, and that sets him off. He can't handle it. He gets angry, he gets defensive, he gets like very dismissive about it. Like it takes a few episodes before he finally can sit down with her to talk about his mom and what happened. So it's funny you brought out that example because it's fresh on my mind. And as I was talking to my wife about it, we were like, it's funny, in society we think that womanizers were taught to be that through maybe like we think that, oh, that's masculinity, that's being a man, but chances are it's a response to maybe your relationship with your mother. So it's actually mommy issues in a sense. What like comment on all that?
Yeah, it's I like to say this. I like to say it's the same brain. The same brain that saw your mom cheating is the same brain that's is in a relationship right now. So if you didn't deal with that, it will somehow affect this, So the things that we go through as a child, at a certain age, we are a sponge. We are absorbing all the environmental information, everything we are seeing, I tell parents, if you have a child around you, your child, you have a CCTV on you.
Yeah.
Whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you see it or not, they're just observing you. And they're going to imitate what you're doing. They'll imitate immediately or they'll imitate in the future. And unfortunately, in the future, it becomes something that is in our subconscious. We do it unknowingly. Yeah. I don't know if Harvey Specter knew what he was doing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so you might think this is just a behavior that I have, but it's your imitation in some weird way of what you saw. Yeah. And you're trying to relive it. You're trying to recreate, Sometimes you find yourself having, and maybe this will connect to something we'll talk about later. You'll find yourself always getting into relationships with people who are in other relationships. Why?
Yes, there's that pattern of people always in a mpango ya kando situation.
What's going on with you? What did you see as a child? Did you see that that's acceptable, or is this a rebellion? Because it can be the opposite. The same way with someone who grew up in an abusive household, you can either end up being an abuser or the abused. If you don't deal with it, So it can go either way. Yeah, and that's why you need to be keen on the patterns that you're repeating. You need to have moments with yourself where you're like, why do I always end up in relationships where there's another person? Why do I always pick out people who don't love me where I would want to be loved, Especially for girls, if you didn't have a good relationship with your dad.
Daddy issues.
They come up. You pick these unavailable men. You end up in these relationships, you're always unsatisfied. And you're wondering what's going on. Because it's things that you experience as a child. It's registered in your subconscious. It takes effort for it to come to the forefront. It takes something happening that you're like, I'm tired of repeating this.
Your breaking point.
You come to your breaking point and you're like, where did this come from?
It makes me think about how there's that Nviri, the storyteller song, Kila mtu anashare what. I can't think of the exact lyrics, but Nairobi, that's all.
Nairobi.
Yule anakupea, ananipea, sisi wote tunashare, something like that. And you see, it's funny the things that pick up in the city. That song is obviously, I guess that's the good thing in a sense about art, is that it paints a picture of society, because that song is so popular and that particular line is repeated so much in like Twitter, social media. People use it all over. And I think it's I don't know what word to use, but it's kind of like an indicator of the state of the society, because it's like, why are we picking out that line as a thing we keep repeating? Because first of all, it's dysfunctional. We shouldn't accept it. And then I think also it's become a trope where people think that this is just how Nairobi is. Everyone shares each other's spouse. So in a way, what you're saying, that's a subconscious thing. We've accepted that in Nairobi, just be ready to share your spouse. And that points to the likelihood of, as a society, us having that brokenness is very common. It bothers me a lot. It bothers me how we have accepted
that kind of an arrangement, and it's a controversial thing. People say men are polygamous and they can't be monogamous, and we say the African man had many wives, and we go to the Bible and all those things. But to me, my own personal opinion is that if you've made a promise to one person, you should stick to it. If you're not ready to stick to it, don't make a promise. Tell them, you know what? I'm open. Are you okay with being open? Let's not pretend. We like to pretend. Kenyans, we like to pretend so much. I don't know why we do it. And it affects us in many other ways. We don't want to be held accountable. And I always see it reflecting even up to our political system. We don't want to be held accountable. You want to have your wife and other people, then because you don't want to be held accountable, you don't want to hold other people accountable. You don't want to hold your politicians accountable. You don't want to hold people who are in offices accountable to the responsibilities they should be accountable for. So, like I was saying, it's the same brain. Yeah, it's the same brain, exactly. It's working against you, and you can't even tell. So I hope one day we'll just grow up from it.
So what are some ways we can identify our own emotional injury? And what steps would you advise the moment we realize that we are not okay?
Some steps we can take to realize our emotional traumas. Take time to sit with yourself. Take time to look at your life. Take time to check in with yourself. Don't be a spectator in your own life. Live a conscious life. Take time to sit down and ask yourself, what has been going on with me for the past 1 month? What have I been doing? Where do I feel stuck? Where do I feel stuck? What patterns am I seeing myself repeating? What are my fears? What are the places that I find joy, not just the negative? Where do I find joy? What gives me the psyche to wake up in the morning? Take time to reflect on your life. Very important. Then you'll be able to see, I think here there's a problem. And when you're not feeling okay, don't suppress it. Whether you're a woman or a man. Men are not supposed to cry. Kangumu. Mwanaume ni kujikaza. No. Take time to if you're not okay, address it. Ask yourself, okay, what's going on with me? Let me talk to so and so. Let me hear what they have to say. Or maybe I need professional help. Let me go for therapy. Find a way to get professional help. Know who are the therapists. Who can I call? Don't wait for the day you are in crisis, then you don't even know who to call. Follow pages. Have Brenda's number. Yes.
Follow her on social media.
Yes, follow Brenda. No, okay, I can call her or she can connect me to someone, Follow all these professionals who talk about these things so that you are in that space. The day you're having a crisis, it's not a crisis as much. You know where to go, And another thing also, let's look out for each other. Sometimes because some of these things are in your subconscious mind, you might not notice them. So have a circle of people who can tell you, hey, you know what? You do this a lot. Yeah. What's going on with you there? Have people who will give you honest, well-intentioned feedback about yourself. And be that person who gives honest and well-intentioned feedback. Don't go there trying to make somebody feel bad. They're already feeling bad. Tell them, maybe that's something you need to check, because it helps. People play such a significant role. When we're doing the documentary, one of the gentlemen who was sharing his story, he was having mental health issues in high school. And guess who noticed? The principal. So it's the people around us, the teachers, our colleagues, is the person who noticed and called the parents and said, hey, this young man could be experiencing this. can you maybe get him assessed and let's figure out what the problem is. So we really need to be each other's yes, we need to take care of each other and look out for each other. And if you see someone is not okay, speak up. Why does the toxic work environment prevail? Because you see your boss harassing another colleague and you can't tell them. And maybe you have a relationship with that boss that you can be like, hey, I think you're too hard on so-and-so, or so-and-so, this is what would work best for them. Let's develop the culture of speaking out for each other. Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I wonder, in terms of being each other's keeper, I think there's usually an element of fear, and fear, which we all experience, is not... It's not a helpful thing. Thinking about it in the friendship context, you might be afraid to lose a friend.
Yeah.
But I think it reaches a place, I think especially the older you get more comfortable with losing friends, because it's like, I have to share the truth with you, because otherwise what are we really doing here?
Yeah.
We can't be in our 30s and I'm watching you replay the same story ever since we were in high school, like this, and I have to say something about it. And I've noticed that will probably make you not popular, but you have to be ready to share those truths with people because, like you said, it's the same brain. So if we're carrying forward that fear, it's going to play in every sector of our lives.
True.
Yeah, and we perpetuate the negativity.
Yeah.
Identifying mental health struggles is not intuitive for many, especially in our society. I think you've kind of answered this actually, because I was going to ask what are some ways we can get better at identifying that we are suffering. I think you've covered that in terms of being there for others and also questioning, taking stock of things. So that's good. What are some ways you see us coping with emotional injuries the wrong way?
Yeah, we cope the wrong way. We get into addictive behaviors, whether it's alcohol and drugs, whether it's being buried in our work, whether it's getting into relationships for the sake of, because we just want to feel a connection with someone, because we just want to feel that rush. We get into all this addictive behavior because we are so afraid of facing the pain. It's never easy, You have to face the pain. It means you have to go back to the wound and clean it so that it can now heal properly. So we get into these addictive behaviors that really never end up anywhere, They just ruin us, Someone... because their work is so stressful, every day after work, they will go to the bar. Badakazi.
1759.
Yes, 1759, you're seated and you're there to drown your sorrows. It works for some time until now the drinking starts controlling you, Yes, it's good to have a break between work and getting home if your work environment is stressful, but don't overdo it, Don't drink too much until you lose the control, And if you find yourself experiencing these extreme highs when you do something, just ask yourself, why is that? What is it covering for you? What is it, why are you so drawn to it? Yeah. What wound is it masking? So just look at your addictions. When people take alcohol and you ask someone, for example, someone who's dealing with alcohol addiction, you ask them, why are you drinking? What does the alcohol do for you? And they tell you, it makes me feel so high. It makes me feel so good. Then now the question is, what are you looking for in that high that you don't get
in normal everyday life?
Then they'll tell you, well, that's the only time I feel free. That's the only time I feel happy. That's the only time I can forget about this stressful situation that's affecting me in my life. So it's important to ask yourself, what are you looking for in that addiction? What are you looking for in getting into a new relationship every now and then? What is that thing? Are you looking for the love? Are you angry? Like maybe Harvey Specter was angry with the mom. You know, are you angry? What is it? Because as human beings deep down, we usually know something is wrong.
Yeah.
But we are just so afraid to confront it. Yeah. So have those deep conversations with yourself. They are very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's helpful.
Yeah.
So what are actually just a comment on the coping. Kenya is a drinking nation, unfortunately, and like we say that and everyone knows that phrase, but I don't think a lot of times we stop to think about what that means.
Yeah.
It's very dysfunctional to say that. The same way Americans are known for having guns, we are known for drinking. Us and Ugandans were known for being alcoholics. And somehow we are okay with that. It's funny because even foreigners, I've seen a few videos of this online where you'll see like a European do a video that, oh, last night I was drinking with a Kenyan. And they're like, I'm so messed up. You know, like I've never been this messed up.
Oh my God.
You know, but it's like, it's become a thing. Like if you are drinking with Kenyans and you survive, like you're a real survivor.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think, and of course it's funny when you watch those videos, but it's really not funny in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's not. It's not, because the impact is huge.
Yeah.
You know, one person drinking, where is their family, where the money, what are they masking, what other toxic behaviors are they engaging in, you know? It's that whole thing about someone who is an abuser.
Yeah.
When you're an abuser, you're not just, let's say you're a sexual abuser. That means you are not, the person you're abusing now is not the first person you have abused in many cases, and it's not the first person you will end up abusing. So that's why if someone is a victim, they need to report. Like it's the same brain thing. It's spilling to other things. If you're overdoing in this area, what other area are you overdoing? What other area are you damaging in your life? You know? So it's a concern. It's a concern. We need to find a way to drink while also observing our limits, you know? And this is the debate in the whole field of addiction and drinking. The debate is drinking has been a part of our traditions. As Black people, as Africans, as Kenyans, we would drink during circumcision. Yeah. We would drink at a wedding. We would drink at a rorashio and all our various ceremonies. But now that's okay because it was monitored, it was limited, you know, it was controlled.
It was celebratory. It was celebratory.
Yes. Yeah. But now we are overdoing it. We've come to a place where we drink too much. We are celebrating every day.
What are we celebrating? Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I think even nyama choma, I know at least because from the Kikuyu side, nyama choma was like it was a very specific thing. You can't quote me on the specifics, but from what I understand is that nyama choma was like a specific time for a specific reason, and it was it wasn't you're sitting down to eat a whole goat or whatever, and then you're sharing it in the community and whatnot. But today, nyama choma is a snack.
Yeah.
So nyama choma and beer and all those things now go hand in hand. And anytime you want it, you can get it.
Yeah.
And I think this has become a thing. Speaking of nutrition, is somebody was joking the other day on this show about how someone told them, they were like, why are we eating cake all the time as a society? You know, like we have access to cake, chips. Chips are no longer special. You know, as a kid, chips was special. Now it's not. Pizza is not special. So she was saying, somebody told her, I eat cake because I'm celebrating life. It's like the same thing. Like how these things have become so accessible, but they're really damaging us. In the long run. Yeah.
They are. You know, alcohol affects you from head to toe. Everything. You know, it affects your skin, and that's everywhere. So you need to be careful.
Yeah. Kabisa. So you've touched on strategies for dealing with emotional injury. Are there any others you'd like to mention? I think you've mentioned some already. I don't know if there's any you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, also for people who like writing, journaling, I always recommend journaling. Please don't be bored with me. Journaling is very good. It helps you build self-awareness. It helps you empty your mind. It helps you see your patterns. For people who don't have the intuition you're talking about or the ability to introspect, writing will help you see your patterns. Do a hobby.
And how that writing, because writing speaks to me particularly because I've tried it in the past, and then my experience has been when you read back what you wrote, especially when you're going through a very highly emotional moment, you're like, this can't be me. So it's a very interesting tool to use. So I definitely agree. How would you direct someone? Because when you say writing, someone might think you have to write an essay with a bibliography, but explain to us, how should that writing look like? What should that writing look like?
Your writing should be free, with no rules. Just saying what's in your heart and what's in your mind. Think of it as if you're talking to someone who's ready to listen to you. Think of it as even a prayer. When you're praying, you don't edit yourself so much. You're just like, oh, God help me, I'm going through this is so bad. So be free, say what's in your heart, in your mind. There's no order. You don't need to start with one and end with the other. But I always give people a tip of end on the positive light. Don't end while you're at the point of lamenting. So just write whatever's coming to your mind, whatever's coming to your heart. Because that also gives you insight. And maybe you've experienced this. When you start writing, you realize, so it's what happened yesterday that's stressing me now.
Yes.
There's
something that's always at the top of your mind.
So just write. There are no rules.
Really helpful. Then you are going to move on to something else. So writing.
Writing, and then also find something fun.
Hobby, you said.
Exactly, a hobby. Find a hobby that you enjoy, that you're doing strictly for fun. Do something that will give you an opportunity to be playful, to be a child again, in your own way. Some people find, recently I came across someone who's coloring. Apparently they are coloring books for adults. I didn't know.
I think I've seen that.
You've seen? Yeah. So someone recently told me, nowadays I just color to relax. Be silly. For some people, it's cooking. For me, cooking stresses me out. Others, cooking makes them feel relaxed. The detail of it, the transformation of food makes them feel relaxed. Do that. Try as much as possible to make it your reality. Whatever it is, singing. I love to sing. Singing is my thing. I'll sing all the time in the house. When there's an opportunity for me to perform, I'll go for it and sing and enjoy.
Really? Okay,
nice. I love it. It makes me feel good. So do that. Whatever it is, those reflective moments where you sit down and learn more about yourself, ask yourself what makes you happy. Maybe your thing is calling your sister and talking to them on the phone for hours. Do that. Find a day, call them, talk to them. Maybe you're those people who like to sit down with people and just talk about random stuff. Do that. Do it at least. If you can once a day, do it. If you can once a week, do it. But don't live a life that is so strict and very structured and very stressful and very intense. Your mind needs a break. Yeah.
I find that for a lot of fitness people, working out can be that. It can be that. For me, it is. And actually, for me, considering the whole mental health discussion and fitness was realizing how good I feel after a workout and how after years of working out, there's like a compounding effect. But there's also the risk of it being addicted to it in a negative kind of way. And I think just because of the things that go into fitness can easily turn toxic, caring too much about how you look, trying to show off, whatnot. But I find that fitness, for people who enjoy fitness, fitness has the potential to be that thing. And I know a lot of fitness enthusiasts out there can relate to the fact that when you get the first few minutes of exercising is always difficult when you're trying to warm up, but when you actually get into the groove of things, you find that you can even go longer than you intended because you get into that flow. So I think for me personally, fitness started it. I mean, of course, it didn't start off as a business. It's turned into a business, but it came from a place of it was that thing for me, and it still is that thing for me. Yeah, but sometimes, of course, because now you've mixed the two worlds, there's a potential for it to now become a stressor and stuff. But I think your strategy of finding something totally playful is really helpful. Because life can be rigid, and also fitness can be very rigid because you're thinking about a specific outcome that you want. But again, fitness can be that thing for some people out there.
Yeah, it can be fun. Like for me, I sometimes I do walks for fun, and it can work as exercise and to also relieve my mind. Do things like walks, they really help. And interestingly, I realized such a big difference between I'm going out to the shop to buy something and walk for exercise plus versus I'm just going out to walk.
Just to walk.
I come back feeling relaxed. But when I'm thinking, I have to go to the supermarket and pick that, it's heavy.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Because like there's people who walk long distances, but they're not relaxed. It doesn't relax them really.
Yeah.
Because it's like you had to. Yeah.
Exactly. You had to.
That's good. Have you found any gender differences in how people cope? If so, what are these?
Gender differences. So the male are allowed to do certain things. A man is allowed to be angry. If a man is angry, it's okay. So what happens in that scenario is anytime a man experiences an emotion that they don't quite understand, that makes them feel inferior, that makes them feel devalued, that makes them feel unloved even, the only way they can express it in a socially acceptable way is through anger. So when they have all these other things and they're not able to turn it into anger, they keep it inside and they suffer through it. And then now they'll go to the other things that men are allowed to do. Men are allowed to smoke, it's okay. Men are allowed to drink, it's okay. So they'll use that. They'll do the things which society have said is okay to do. And that's why addiction rates are higher in men than in women.
And suicide too.
Yeah, because men succeed more. Women might have many pressures that make them vulnerable to depression, because women have a higher recording of having depression as opposed to men because of the society and also because of their biological, the hormones. But for women, we are allowed to talk about our issues. Men are not allowed to talk about their issues. Don't show weakness by talking, by saying you feel bad, by saying you don't feel loved, But women, we are allowed to sit in a circle with our girlfriends and say, I feel I'm not okay. I feel that man is unfair to me, or I feel she said something nasty to me. We have a circle of expressing our feelings, and after talking, we feel better. So we don't keep it inside. So because of those gender setups, different genders express their frustration, their psychological distress differently. And so you see it in like the suicide numbers, you see it in the depression numbers, you see it in other indicators like anxiety, and those anger issues and many other indicators that show that this is a symptom of a mental health, a psychological distress that has not been handled the right way. That's,
I think that totally makes sense, unfortunately, because And it's the norm. I mean, women have chamas, men have bars.
You know,
Yeah,
see
yeah,
right there.
It's a very clear position that we've accepted.
Yeah.
And it's really sad.
Yeah, we'll have the chamas. On in a chama, what do we have? We have good chapos, you know. We have food. In the bar, we have the alcohol, you know. So you'll drink and not even talk. Before you know it, you've not expressed what you're feeling, you know. So we need to encourage men to have these conversations. We need to encourage men to, it's okay to say as a man, I felt bad. I need to feel loved, you know. Let's normalize men hugging each other. Let's normalize men crying, you know. And today,
you're hopeful.
Today on this podcast, I'm giving all the men permission to cry in private and in public. If they ask you why you're crying, you said Brenda said it's okay.
Good luck with that one. Yes, what your message is find that place where you can be vulnerable and also be the person who others can be vulnerable with. And I think it's a helpful thing to think about for a lot of us. Finally, what are some resources you know of that can help people who find that they need assistance with their mental health, emotional injuries, all these things that we've talked about?
So like I said earlier, find a therapist, know people who are in this space, who you can talk to, who you can reach out to, have their contacts, know how much they charge. So that's one. Get someone a therapist who you'll need to pay. You can also find places where they offer free therapy. There are some churches who offer free therapy by professionals. There's the one done by the pastor because they're in the service industry, so to speak. But there are churches who've actually found a psychologist to sit there and talk to people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know of specific churches?
I know ICC, Mombasa Road, they have counselors, professional counselors. Ask your church if they have that. Some churches have, what is it called? These medical camps, and they sometimes invite psychologists. So find out from your church, do they have that? Is it a professional and all that? And by the way, it's okay to ask your therapist, what are your qualifications? Because you want to know. You want to know who you're dealing with. So find places like that. There's another organization called Befriend Us Kenya. They also offer free therapy. So find places you can get free therapy. Then finally get resources. Like go on YouTube. There are so many people doing content. I know there are few black faces. That's why we are here. We are trying to be the black faces. But find the few black faces. Even those white faces and colored faces, it's okay. Listen to what they are saying. Because human beings are human beings all over the world. We all feel love and pain, you know, and happiness. So get resources on YouTube. Follow those pages. Don't just follow vloggers. Follow professionals also. Follow fitness experts.
Follow us at Shujaa Fitness on all platforms.
Follow professionals. And also read about these things. We have Google. We are so fortunate. We are living in an era where we have free access to information, you know. Those bundles that you get, go to... Use them wisely. At least leave some for your wellness and go and read articles. And most importantly about the internet, read content from universities or licensed professionals. Or international organizations. If you're going to a website, make sure it's written .org or .int or for schools, it's usually written...
Is it edu?
EDU, yes, for education institutions. Yes. So read those ones you can trust, you know, instead of just someone who named themselves a professional So, and even those education institutions have YouTube channels where they post content, you know, or someone who you've followed their journey and you're certain they are a professional, Yeah, don't just get TikTok people who claim to be professionals. Yeah, and be interested. If you're maybe experiencing something, read like even up to 3 articles about it. Watch up to 5 YouTube videos about it, Then that way, I know people who've overcome by just self-educating. Yeah, there are people who, especially there's a lady who told me she had postpartum depression.
Wow.
She was able to read content and listen to professionals and make changes. Mental health requires you to make changes and she was able to overcome.
Wow.
Yeah, so information is powerful. It can help you get over some of these things. Yeah.
And also share with us your channels, your contacts that you're willing to share as well.
Okay, so I have a mental health awareness campaign called Mental is Human Too. So I share information on social media. I am on TikTok as Mental is Human Too, on YouTube as Mental is Human Too, Twitter also, and Instagram. And I have a website, www.mentalishuman2.org. So if you type Mental is Human Too, you'll be able to find
Mental is Human, T-O-O.
Yes,
Okay.
T-O-O.
Okay.
Yeah, because mental is human too.
Okay, nice.
It makes sense?
Yeah. That's like your own creation.
Yes, that's my own creation. Like I was talking about my mother experience, I came out of it feeling like the general population doesn't have information. So I started that initiative to share the information. So it's something I'm building with time, and hopefully in future we'll do greater things, we'll grow the platform. Yeah.
I'm sure you will. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all this helpful information. Is there anything that you feel like we need to mention that we've left out before we close?
None that I can think of at the moment.
Okay.
But what I would like to say is that anyone who's going to watch this, share this information, share this video, share the link, talk about it.
Yes.
Let it be a conversation starter. Go into a space with men and tell them about scheduling a crying time.
She's really pushing this crying
I'm
time.
pushing. And just hear what kind of silly remarks they'll say. But that silly remark, someone will go back home and think about it, Talk to people about mental health. Be the weirdo family member who's posting a video about mental health in a family platform. Because let me tell you, people are going through these things.
Yeah.
They're just not ready to talk about it. Your sister could be experiencing something, your auntie, and that is something I've realized, because now that I'm talking about mental health, so many people in my circle, I'm like, why weren't you coming before? So be the ambassador, mental health ambassador, and share the content.
Great.
Yeah.
So do check her out on social media. Like she said, reach out to her if you need any more specifics. If there's something that you feel like you need more clarification about, please reach out to either myself or Brenda. We don't know everything, but this was supposed to be something to help someone get started. Just like this show is supposed to help you get started with your fitness journey, hopefully with the professionals on the mental health side that we'll have. They'll give you a start along the lines of addressing maybe some of those issues that have held you back in the past. Slowly asking yourself those important questions, sitting yourself down for a meeting if need be. But thank you so much again for your time. So we'll see you on the next episode. All the best.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Shujaa Fitcast. For more information and business inquiries, email us at shujaafitnesswarrior@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at Shujaa_fitness on Instagram, at Shujaa Fitness on Facebook and TikTok, and subscribe to our channel at Shujaa Fitness on YouTube. For audio versions of this podcast, check us out on Spotify, Boomplay, and Apple Podcasts. This show was recorded and produced at the Represented Studio in Nairobi, Kenya. Special thanks to Lucid for the background music.